Hello there. I'm Jason Turvey from the Workers' Party of Britain, and it's a great pleasure for me to sit here and talk to Dan Cosby. Dan is standing in the Ealing Broadway ward for Ealing Borough Council elections, which will be taking place in May. Dan, hello.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for speaking with me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on and talking to me today. So the first question for you is a nice, easy one. For those people that are watching, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm actually a student at the moment. I'm a mature student. I decided to go back to university after, not finding many good job prospects after leaving college when I was younger. So struggled through a few different jobs. Not able to find the right career for me there. So I thought I'd go back to university and try and find a proper career. So I'm actually working at the moment, but also a student of computer science.
Okay, and how long have you lived in Ealing?
I've lived in Ealing for the past 3 years or so. Moved here a few years ago, and it's got a lot of lovely aspects, a lot of lovely features, and there's a lot of good people around here.
Excellent, excellent. So you told us about your journey and how you've arrived in Ealing. How did you arrive at the Workers' Party of Britain?
Well, there's a long version and a short version. But to summarise, I think there's a few things in my life that have pointed me towards this direction in politics. One is that I've always felt, we could be doing things better. If you look around the world, there's so much to be proud of in terms of like human accomplishment and human achievement. But then on the other hand, you look at the same things happening. Sorry, not the same things happening, but on the other hand, you look at the opposite happening. So we have all this marvelous progress, all these amazing achievements, and then you have the death, destruction, poverty at the same time. I grew up under Tony Blair, the Tony Blair years. And so I distinctly remember everything essentially getting worse, services getting worse, schools getting worse, everything going downhill, and yet getting more expensive. So for ordinary people, life was getting harder and harder. And I looked at, we've had Labour, we've had Tory, the Liberal Democrats haven't formed a government. So this was before 2010. I voted in my local election for Liberal Democrats because I thought, well, they're not one of the two parties essentially that we've had throughout the 20th century. Obviously, being a first past the post system, there was no hope of anyone other than a Conservative getting into that seat. And so my vote felt essentially worthless. It doesn't matter, what I voted, what I did, it was always going to be a Tory seat. And then the Liberal Democrats actually managed to win in a few other seats in the country, enough to form a coalition government with the Tories, and promptly went back on all their campaign promises, raised tuition fees, cut social services, job seekers, all these kind of things. And so it really opened my eyes to the reality of politics in this country, that if you want to make a difference, it's not going to be through any of the major mainstream parties. And really the only way to do that is to find a party that's explicitly setting out to empower working people, to give working people a voice, to put working people in the driving seat and actually make things work for ordinary working people in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's understandable for anyone to be slightly disenchanted with the main parties that we have in this country, given the amount of volte faces and abandonments of working people that they've done over the many decades. But which points from the party's 10-point plan could most effectively tackle the issues facing people in the Ealing area?
I think there's a few major aspects. A few I want to point out are regarding housing. So Ealing's population has fluctuated massively, but it's been on the rise in the past few years. And there's a huge waiting list tens of thousands of people on the council waiting list to try and find homes. And we've had this shocking situation across London, but also across the country, where I was reading about an example of some young lad that had to make a horrendous, something like 75-mile trip. That was one way, over 150-mile round trip journey to go to school every day, because his family could not be found accommodation within the city that he went to school with, and with which his friends and family, the rest of his family, must live. And the same thing happens in London, where people are unable to be housed if there's an emergency, if they need accommodation. They simply will not be housed in the borough where their friends, family, jobs, lives are. And so that's a huge issue. But the current, I'm reluctant to call it a solution to that issue, is to build massive high-rise developments and call these affordable homes. The reality is these are not affordable homes. They're not affordable for normal people. There's a lot of these developments that are segregated, so they'll have pour doors. So if there is social housing in there, which typically makes up less than a third, if that, in these developments, the people in social housing provided by the council will be ushered in through the back door, not to mingle with the people that are investing, generally not buying to live in these houses. These are generally sold as investment opportunities. So we need to look at affordable, sustainable, sensible development that actually benefits ordinary people. So not these high-rise developments that become massive investment opportunities, but actually building homes for people. And we've got a lot of housing stock, we've got a lot of space that can be adapted to meet those needs, rather than these towers that are unpopular with everyone, that only serve to make a small group of investors richer.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a Workers' Party candidate, what can you offer the people of Ealing that the other candidates can't?
I hope to offer the people of Ealing a voice, essentially. There's only one of me and 68 other councillors if I get in. But I think it's time that the people of Ealing had their real wishes and thoughts and concerns represented in the council, and to have someone there that can tell them what's going on in the council. And we've seen the Labour Council just roll over. Essentially, there's almost £1 billion in the ring fence reserves, and I'm not sure what they're saving up for. We've had crises after crises, especially during coronavirus. It's hard to imagine much worse hitting the borough of Ealing, but there are real tangible problems now that could be solved. But the council are absolutely unwilling to challenge the government. They're unwilling to challenge the government on lesser funds coming towards local authorities. So that's why I thoroughly support the another point of the national campaign for the Workers' Party, which is a 5% tax, one-off tax on everyone whose wealth exceeds £10 million. Now, that would affect only a tiny proportion of people in Britain, but it would generate such a huge income to be able to invest in jobs, infrastructure, and services that we so desperately need. Instead, the local councils are happily working hand in glove with the government to pass costs on to ordinary residents, ordinary people who are already bearing the brunt of the coronavirus. If they haven't lost their job, they've been furloughed on reduced pay. If they're paying for services, they're getting less. They're continually being cut, and we're being forced to pay more and more and get less and less in return. So I think it's about time we reverse that tide.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And as you said, the COVID pandemic, it's for a start, it's killed 150,000 people in this country. It's dominated the news, obviously, for the last 12 months, and it's wreaked untold hardship on the working class, in particular, in this country. I saw a figure on social media today about the amount of money that was being siphoned away from the working class, and almost exactly the same amount of money has ended up in the pockets of the richest. And you mentioned quite rightly the Workers' Party coronavirus tax that we would levy on people with fortunes of over £10 million. The rough maths means that we would raise something in the region of £17 billion from doing that one-off windfall tax. Now, as a prospective councillor in Ealing, if I was to be able to give you a slice of that £17 billion, what specifically for Ealing would you spend that money on?
Well, I think the first thing would be to requisition any unused houses. So any homes that have sat empty for more than 5 years should be requisitioned and turned into social housing. If these properties are there and sitting empty, they're not doing anyone any good, and they're contributing to this massive housing crisis that we're having. I'd also encourage investment in local infrastructure, so better transport links, free school meals for all children. I think that's an important thing to offer now, considering so many more children are going hungry during the coronavirus crisis, but also will be in the fallout from this crisis and the economic crisis. And I think investment in local jobs and infrastructure will be key in recovering from that.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned in your answer there about transport, amongst other things. What specifically about the transport infrastructure in Ealing would you seek to improve?
I think we need to get rid of the low traffic networks for now. I think in the spirit of them is a good idea. We want nice, safe neighborhoods, but at the moment, what it's doing is penalizing people for just trying to get around, for having cars. Crossrail is coming through the borough, but it's been delayed, and that's already too little, too late for the growth of the population of Ealing and the city. So we would look at having further bus links with neighbouring boroughs and express buses into the middle of the city, working with TfL to get those introduced so that people can get around more easily without using their cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're coming towards the end of our time now, Dan. So what I want to do is just close by giving you the final word, and just tell the people that are watching this at home what a difference you would make personally as a councillor in Ealing.
Well, I don't want to disappoint you, but I don't think I would make a huge difference personally. I want to make a huge difference with the people of Ealing. I want the people of Ealing and Ealing Broadway in particular to come together and help us build the Workers' Party and help us build a movement, help us build something that can really change politics on a local level and on a national level. It's only by getting involved and working together that we're going to be able to make life better for anyone, that we're going to be able to affect any change. So if, like me, you're sick of all the waste, all the greed, all the corruption, then get involved with the Workers' Party, get involved with our campaign in Broadway, and come and help us change that.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan Cosby, candidate for Ealing Broadway ward in the Ealing Borough elections in May. Thanks for talking to me.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.